Hey guys, how's it going? Buster Photo here with another camera review and how-to. Today we have the Fujica Gw690, a behemoth of a medium format camera. I mean, which medium format camera is relatively small, but affectionately called the Texas Leica. Why? Because just like a Leica, this is a rangefinder camera. Unlike the Leica, it is enormous, thereby the Texas name, because everything is bigger in Texas. I'll take your word for it. We're going to go over how to use this camera, the features, a little bit of the quirks of it, and a little bit of size comparison, and what I think about this camera and how much you should pay for it in 2020. I'll also have a video showing you how to adjust the rangefinder in this camera, but that'll be in a separate video because I don't want this video to be 20 minutes long. Anyways, let's get right into it. Let's start off with a little bit of size comparison. Let's use the most popular film camera for the up-and-coming beginner film shooter, the Canon AE-1 program. Right away, you can see, I mean, this is obviously a 35mm camera, but holy smokes, look at that size difference. This camera is enormous. It earns the Texas Leica name. All right, let's get right into it. Starting with the front of the camera, this is a fixed lens camera, meaning you cannot change the lens. The lens that it comes with, it's fixed, thereby fixed. The lens we have is a Fujinon 90mm 3.5 lens from the Fuji Photo Film Co. World famous, folks. Right here on the front of the camera, what I initially thought when I first saw this camera was a depth of field preview is actually a shutter button. That's right, this camera has two shutter buttons. Pretty handy when you're shooting, landscape, portrait, switching back and forth. I'll show you the second one in just a bit. Professional 6x9, that means 6x9 negatives. This camera shoots massive size negatives. How many shots? I'll go over that in just a bit. Right here in the front, you have your viewfinder, your little smaller window that helps the rangefinder work. I'll explain that more in a second. And a little bit of light, a little window to let some light in for your parallax correction. I'll explain what that is in just a second. Looking at the lens, see if we can zoom in a little bit more, get a better look. Apologize about the glare. Right on the lens, this ring right here is for your focusing. You adjust your aperture also right here on the lens from 3.5 all the way to f32. Right in front of that is the shutter speed dial, which goes from 1/500th all the way down to 1 second, and then T for time. The way that works, you fire the shutter, it'll stay open indefinitely until you either turn the shutter speed dial or advance the film. I'll show you a little bit more about advancing the film in just a second. Right here to the side of the camera, you have these two little lugs. These are just for your neck strap. They're both on the side, which is kind of interesting, which makes your camera hang in that orientation. This is the first version of the GW690. The GW692 and 3, if I'm not mistaken, they moved the lugs up top so it hangs just like a typical camera does. All right, let's move to the back. Back of the camera, not much going on here. You have your film door, you have your viewfinder window. Now, I did mention that this camera is a rangefinder. If you've never seen or used a rangefinder, pretty much, if it's properly calibrated, let's use some lens caps over here for a visual. Now, just for this video's sake, let's imagine these two lens caps are exactly the same. Now, the way your rangefinder works, as you move the focus dial, you see like a ghost image, and then it kind of lines up. And when your two images are lined up, if the rangefinder is properly calibrated, that means your image, your picture will be in focus. And that's how that works. Now, I did mention there's a small window here to let in light for not only your rangefinder, but also your parallax. Parallax pretty much means inside the viewfinder, you see a rectangle that represents your picture, and as you move the focus forward and back, this also moves left to right or forward and back if you want, if you understand that better. And that pretty much tells you, it helps you frame your image when you fire the shutter button. Pretty simple. I hope that explanation helps or isn't too confusing. Moving to the bottom of the camera, we have these two little, I guess you call them lugs, little adjustment things. That's for when you're loading your film. I'll show you how that works in just a second. For here you have your tripod mount, and this little window right here is your roll counter. Now let's see if we can get close enough to make it out. And if you can make that out, it says 378. Now if this is to be believed, because you can also open the camera and adjust it, that means that this camera has shot 378 rolls of film. So if you can find one with a really low number, that's great, but don't always believe it, because I've heard that it's pretty easy to open the camera and roll it back, much like an odometer on an old car. Moving to the top of the camera, right here it should have said Fujica Gw690, but after years and years of love, it's been worn off. I actually have my pretty version over here that I can show you that actually still has it, Fujica Gw690. Why I'm not using my pretty version? Well, I'm kind of gonna disassemble this camera for my next video, so I thought might as well use this one. Anyways, moving along here, right here we have a cold shoe for a flash or a light meter, because as I forgot to mention, this camera has no light meter. It's fully mechanical, no batteries, film advance, fire, and you keep going. Right here, this dial right here is how you select which kind of film you're using. Now, with 6x9 negatives, you get 8 exposures, which is on the 8. So a regular roll of 120 film, you'll get 8 exposures. Now, at some point, I don't know if it still does, but I've never seen it here in the States, they used to make half rolls of 120. In that case, if you happen to have one of those rolls, you would get 4 exposures. If you're using 220 film, you would get 16 exposures. And you would just turn this little dial to correspond with which kind of film you're using. Right here we have our film, so we can zoom in on that. Our film counter window, there, which is on S for start, and that'll advance to whatever corresponding, film you put the dial to. Right here you have your film advance shutter, your film advance lever, I should say, and your shutter button, the second one. This is one, the other one's right here. Now the camera will not fire if there's no film in the camera, but it will fire if you open the film door. In case you find one of these and you want to test it, if you want to fire the film, the shutter, I should say, it won't work if the film door is closed. And to open the film door, there's a little tiny silver tab right there. You just grab that with a fingernail, and the film door opens up, and this is where you load your film. Pretty self-explanatory. And with the film door open, you can dry fire. Oh, 1 second. You can dry fire the camera to test it out, but just keep in mind, even though there's no film in here, the film counter will still keep moving with every shutter, every firing of the shutter, moving a little bit, So just something to keep in mind if you're trying to keep your roll count really low on your camera. If you don't care, fire away. So, right here is where we would load our film. Now, of course, as I have nowhere near me an extra empty spool of 120, but it's pretty basic how to load this camera, but I'll kind of go through the steps with you. So you pull this tab down and you pull it out, and that way you can insert your 120 film, and then you kind of let it fall back in, close it. You advance the paper here. Normally there'd be another spool here. you kind of put it into that spool and then slowly wind it forward. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's nothing really special about this. And you would advance it until there will be 2 black arrows here. Once they line up with that little red mark, you close the film door and then you're ready to keep shooting. So let me take this back out. Actually, we'll leave it in there for the sake of my sanity and the length of this video. And that is pretty much it for the GW690. It's a super beautiful, super simple camera. It's definitely a head turner because of the just sheer size of this camera. Right now in 2020, it's kind of hard to gauge the prices for this thing because the prices seem to keep going up and up. In this condition, $300 to $400. In a really nice condition like the other one I showed you, looks like they're fetching around $500 to $600 now. They seem to be really gaining traction and popularity now. But it is a awesome camera. Is it for people that are just starting out shooting film? Sure, why not? I mean, there's nothing really difficult about this camera. It's super easy to use. The only thing is, of course, it has no light meter, so maybe in that sense, it'd need a little bit of experience with judging light, or just have an external light meter, pop that baby around with you. That's usually what I do. I have an external unless I'm using Sunny 16 rule. But yeah, this is a beautiful camera. Find it now because just like every other film camera, the prices keep going up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Stay tuned. The next video after this would be how to adjust the rangefinder. I'm actually going to disassemble this camera because I can't seem to find a single video where people actually do that. So I'm going to take it upon myself to do it for you, my internet friends and strangers. But yeah, thank you so much for watching my video. Please like and subscribe. I'm desperate for subscribers. Yeah, and I'll see you guys later.